samsaradava nalalita loka taranaya karunya gana gana tam praptasya kalana kunarnavasya Vande Guroshi Charanarabindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasora Sena Romanchakam Shutaranga Bhajo Vande Guroshi Charanarabindam Shivikrahara Dhananitya Nana Shringara Dhamma Marjanado Yutasya Bhaktam Chaniyunjatopi Vande Guroshi Charanarabindam Chaturvidashi Bhagavat Prasada Swadharana Tripta Hari Bhakta Sangha Kriteva Triptim Bhajatasa Deva Vande Guroshi Charanarabindam Shirathika Mahadavayora Para Madhurya Lila Gunarupa Nam Nam Pratishana Saha Tanalolupasya Vande Guroshi Charanarabindam Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Sitai Yayari Pir Yuktira Bishaniya Tatrati Dakshad Adhivalabhasya Vande Guroshi Charanarabindam Sashathari Tena Samasta Shastre Utasthatha Viteva Sadbihi Kintu Prabhoya Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guroshi Charanarabindam Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado Yasya prasada nagati kutopi Dhyan stuvam stasya yashasti sandhyan Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pisthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Samin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Nila Madha Radha, Nila Madha Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha, Nila Madha Radha, Nila Madha Shri Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Sudarshana. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha. Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jai Om Shinu Pada Pramhamsa Prajaka Chai Ashtota Shadashi Shimadis Divine Grace Aparachana Rinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON PPT Bhakti Vedanta Institute Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Shinu Pada Pramhamsa Prajaka Acharya Ashtota Shadashi Shimadis Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Gauti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Nam Acharya Srila Haridasa Ki Jai Premise Koho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrajabhumi Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Purushottama Chaita Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Ayodhya Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samavrita Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Harinama Sankirtana Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glory to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladaladaine. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Shilatankanakalaye. Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimho. Yato yato yami tato Narsimha. Yami tato Narsimha. Bahe Narsimho Hrudaye Narsimho. Hrudaye Narsimho. Narasimha Madim Charanam Prapade. Simhamadim Charanam. Tava kara kamalavare nakam adbhuta shringam dalita hiranyakashipu tanubringam keshavadrita narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Kara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tanabri अवधृता नरहरि रूप जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो भक्ता प्रहलाद जयो भक्ता प्रहलाद जयो भक्ता प्रहलाद जयो भक्ता प्रहलाद जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव जय लक्ष्मी नरसिम्हा स्वामी की जय जय प्रहलाद महाराज की जय
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी कृष्ण सेवा पाबो ऐ अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो ऐ अभिलाषी तुम्हार शरण लय तारा वांछा पूर्ण होय कोरी करो तारे वृंदावनवासी विलास कुंज दियो वास नयन हरिवो सदा युगल रूप राशि सखीरनुगता कोरो सेवाधिकार दिए कोरो निज दासी कृष्णदास को ये न मोरा होय श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ये न भासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ये न भासी ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी हिताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल वृंदाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः वृंदाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः वृंदाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्यवत्यै नमो नमः
O Tulasi, beloved of Krishna, I bow down before you again and again. My desire obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wish fulfilled. Bestow mercy upon him and make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire also grant me residence in the precious groves of Shiva and Navnatan. Thus within my vision I shall behold the beautiful heart of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me follow Kara Dancer's virgin. Please give me a spiritual devotional service and make my own maid service. This very fallen lowly son of Krishna praise. May I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai. There are 10 fences in the matter of chant holy names which should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating holy name the Lord. 2. To consider name the demigods Allah Shiva, Allah Brahma to be equal to independent of name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the order of spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature pursuant to Vedic version. 5. To consider glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to holy name the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities and strength of chanting holy name the Lord. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna with auspicious ritualistic activities, offering the Vedas fruit activities, karma, ganda. 9. To instruct a faithless person about glorious holy name. 10. To not complete faith in chanting holy names, and to maintain material attachment in understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses. In order to quickly achieve desired success, Krishna, Prema. Now let us offer most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just as deities who can fulfill to everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditions. Shri Chaitanya Shastakam ki jai. Yeto darpana marjanam bhavamahadavagni nirvapanam Shriya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purunarmita Sadhanam Sarvatmasnapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakali Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadishi Tavarkripa Bhagavam Mamapi Durudevami Desham Iha Janina Nurakaha Trinatapi Sunijena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadaharihi Nathanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagatisha Kamaye Mama Jammani Jammanishware Bhavata Bhaktir Haituki Toyi Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stitaturi Satesham Vichintaya Nayanam Karata Shrutaraya Vadanam Katkata Rudaya Gira Pulaka Nichitam Vapurkata Tavanama Kahane Pavishati Yuga Itam Nimi Shena Chakshusha Pravisha Itam Shunya Itam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Ashlishava Padaratam Pinnashtumam Adarshanam Marmhatam Karotuva Yatha Tatha Va Vitatatu Lampato Mad Prana Nathastu Se Eva Na Paraha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Shri Chaitanya Shastakam Ki Jai. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes fire of conditional life for repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction of humanity in large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendent knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendent bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which all is anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone grants all benediction of human beings. Thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendent names, you have vested all your transcendent energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out kindness enables us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking oneself Lord and its joy and street. One should be more taller than a tree, devoid all sense of false prestige, and shall be ready of all respect others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your constant devotional service, birth after birth. O Sanhamarjananda Krishna, I'm an eternal servitor, yet somehow I fall in the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one atom at the lotus feet. O my Lord, while my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constant when I chant the holy name, while my voice choke up, while hair my body stand end the recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling of separation and constant moment to be like a great millennium. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and shall remain so even he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything, everything, for he is all my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Shastakam Ki Jai. Shri Mangala Aarti prayers Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshum Litam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Soyam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Patakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pachate Desha Tarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhani Videvi Daitaya Kripaptaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhavin Namaha Madhuryo Jala Premadya Shri Rupa Nuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karana Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dina Darine Rupa Nuga Viruta Pasiddhanta Dvanta Harine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Saksha Vairagya Murtaye Vipalambara Sambodhe Padam Pujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupa Nuga Varayate Gaura Virbhava Bhumistwan Nirdishta Sajana Priyaha Vaishnava Savabhama Shri Jaganathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurate Shen Namaha Pancha Tattvatmakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Svarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakham Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Surator Pangor Mamamanda Matergati Masarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Matanamo Hano Divyad Vindarana Kaupadurmadaha Shimadra Nagara Singhasanasto Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Pishtaribi Sevimano Smarami Shiman Rasarasarambi Vamsi Vata Tatastitaha Karsham Venus Nergo Pir Gopinatha Shiyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishapanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Dadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Mangalacharna prayers ki jai Shri Brahma Samhita prayers ki jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Parakara Satmasukha Praviksha Laksha Viteshu Surabi Rabi Palayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasam Paramasevya Manam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Venum Kavanantam Aravinda Dalaya Daksham Parharvatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Gantarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Alola Chanta Kalasa Vanamare Vamshi Ranangadam Panayakeli Kalavilasam Shamantipanka Laditam Yata Prakasham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Angani Yasya Sakalendri Vritimanti Pashanti Panti Karayanti Chiram Chaganti Ananda Chimma Satu Chila Vikrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Advaitam Achotam Manadi Mananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Durapam Adurapam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Pantastu Koti Shatavatsara Sampragamyo Vayurathapi Manaso Muni Pangavanam Sopyasti Yapapata Simya Vichinta Tatve Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Ekopya Sora Chaitum Jagatanta Kotim Yachakti Rasti Jagatanta Chayaya Tantaha Antantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manujasta Teva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Pushaha Suktaryam Eva Nikama Patithaistu Vanti Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Ananda Chimma Rasa Patibhavita Pistapi Evancha Rupa Daya Kalapihi Goloka Eva Nivasatya Kilatma Buddha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Premanchana Churta Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sateva Hitayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundam Achinta Guna Swarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Ramadi Murtishu Kalanya Mena Tishtan Nanavatara Makaro Puvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samapava Parama Pumam Yo Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Pajami. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head bedecked with peacock's feather, with a figure beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers beautified with the moon locket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shyamasundara is eternally manifest.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendent form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendent figure possesses himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth.
I worship Govinda, primal Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years.
He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him and is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore.
I adore the same Govinda, the primal Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveniences, and ornaments.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm Goloka with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities. In the company of her confidant Sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa.
I worship Govinda, the primal Lord, who is Shyamasundara, Krishna himself with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion, tinged with the salve of love.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Nrisimha, Vamana, etc. as his subjective portions. Bhagavad Gita 7.1. Srunvatam swakata Krishna punyasravana kirtanaha hridayanta histo hi abhadrani vidinoti suhritsatam nashtaprayesva abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki tada rajastamo bhava kama lobha dayaschaye cheta eter anavidam sthitam sattve prasidati evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate Vidyate Hrudaya Grantes Chityante Sarva Samasyaha Kshiyante Chasya Karmani Drushta Evatma Manishware. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavad Gita and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. By a development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lusts and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of Asamsayam Samagram, understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth Personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Bhagavad Gita 2.6. Na chaitad vidmaha kataran no gariyo yadva jayema yadi va na joye yanyeva hatva na jiji visamas te vastitha Pramukhe Dhritarashtraha. Translation. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. Purport: Arjuna did not know whether he should fight and risk unnecessary violence, although fighting is the duty of the Kshatriyas, or whether he should refrain and live by begging. If he did not conquer the enemy, begging would be his only means of subsistence. Nor was there certainty of victory, because either side might emerge victorious. Even if victory awaited them and their cause was justified, still, if the sons of Dhritarashtra died in battle, it would be very difficult to live in their absence. Under the circumstances, that would be another kind of defeat for them. All these considerations by Arjuna definitely proved that not only was he a great devotee of the Lord, but he was also highly enlightened and had complete control over his mind and senses. His desire to live by begging, although he was born in the royal household, is another sign of detachment. He was truly virtuous, as these qualities combined with his faith in the words of instruction of Krishna, his spiritual master, indicate. It is concluded that Arjuna was quite fit for liberation. Unless the senses are controlled, there is no chance of elevation to the platform of knowledge, and without knowledge and devotion, there is no chance of liberation. Arjuna was competent in all these attributes over and above his enormous attributes in his material relationships.
Kalpanyadoshopada swabhava pruchami tvam dharma sammudacheta yachreyasyan nishitam bruhi tanmi shishyasde aham sadimam tvam prapannam. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple, and a soul surrender unto you. Please instruct me. Purport: by nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. In every step, there is a perplexity, and therefore it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. All Vedic literatures advise us to approach a bona fide spiritual master to get free from the perplexities of life, which happen without our desire. They are all like a forest fire that somehow blazes without being set by anyone. Similarly, the world situation is such that perplexities of life automatically appear without our wanting such confusion. No one wants fire, and yet it takes place, and we become perplexed. The Vedic wisdom therefore advises that in order to solve the perplexities of life and to understand the science of the solution, a person with a one must approach spiritual master who is in the disciplic succession. A person with a bona fide spiritual master is supposed to know everything. One should not therefore remain in material perplexities, but should approach a spiritual master. This is the purport of this verse. Who is the man in material perplexities? It is he who doesn't understand the problems of life. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 3.8.10, the perplexed man is described as follows: Yova etad aksharam gargi aviditvasmal lokat praitisa krupanaha. He is a miserly man who does not solve the problems of life as a human, and who thus quits this world like the cats and dogs, without understanding the science of self-realization. This human form of life is a most valuable asset for the living entity, who can utilize it for solving the problems of life. Therefore, one who does not utilize this opportunity properly is a miser. On the other hand, there is a Brahmana, or he who is intelligent enough to utilize this body to solve all the problems of life. Yaya etad aksharam gargi viditvasmal lokat praiti sa brahmana. The Krupanas, or miserly persons, waste their time in being overly affectionate for family, society, country, etc., in the material conception of life. One is often attached to family life, namely to wife, children, and other members, on the basis of skin disease. The Kripana thinks that he is able to protect his family members from death, or the Kripana thinks that his family or society can save him from the verge of death. Such family attachment can be found even in the lower animals who take care of children also. Being intelligent, Arjuna could understand that his affection for family members and his wish to protect them from death were the causes of his perplexities. Although he could understand that his duty to fight was awaiting him, still, on account of miserly weakness, he could not discharge the duties. He is therefore asking Lord Krishna, the Supreme Spiritual Master, to make a definite solution. He offers himself to Krishna as a disciple. He wants to stop friendly talks. Talks between the Master and the disciple are serious, and now Arjuna wants to talk very seriously before the recognized spiritual master. Krishna is therefore the original spiritual master of the science of Bhagavad Gita, and Arjuna is the first disciple for understanding the Gita. How Arjuna understands the Bhagavad Gita is stated in the Gita itself, and yet foolish, mundane scholars explain that one need not submit to Krishna as a person, but to the unborn within Krishna. There is no difference between Krishna's within and without, and one who has no sense of this understanding is the greatest fool in trying to understand Bhagavad Gita. Nai prapashyami mamapanudyat yacchokamucchosanamindriyanam avapya bhumau asapatnamruddham rajyam suranamapi chadipatyam.
I can find no means to drive away this grief, which is which is dying of my senses. I will not be able to dispel it even if I win with a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth, which with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. Although Arjuna was putting forward so many arguments based on knowledge of the principles of religion and moral codes, it appears that he was unable to solve his real problem without the help of the spiritual master, Lord Krishna. Lord Sri Krishna. He could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away his problems, which were dying up his whole existence, and it was impossible for him to solve such perplexities without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Krishna. Academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc. are all useless in solving problems of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. Therefore, the conclusion is that a spiritual master who is 100% Krishna conscious is the bona fide spiritual master, for he can solve the problems of life. Lord Chaitanya said that one who is a master in the science of Krishna conscious, regardless of his social position, is the real spiritual master.
Krishna Tattvaveta se Guru Haya.
It does not matter whether a person is Vipra, learned scholar in Vedic wisdom, or is born in a lower family, or is the renounced order of life, or is in the renounced order of life. If he is a master in the science of Krishna, he is the perfect and bona fide spiritual master. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 8.128. So without being a master in the science of Krishna conscious, no one is a bona fide Krishna consciousness. No one is a bona fide spiritual master. It is also said in the Vedic literatures,
Tantra Visharadaha Avaishnavo Guru Nasyad Vaishnava Swapaso Guru.
A scholarly Brahmana, expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava or an expert in science of Krishna conscious, Krishna consciousness. But a person born in a family of a lower caste can become a spiritual master if he can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnava or Krishna conscious. Padma Purana. The problems of material existence, birth, old age, disease, and death cannot be counteracted by accumulation of wealth and economic development. In many parts of the world, there are states which are replete with all facilities of life, which are full of wealth and economically developed. Yet the problems of material existence are still present. They are seeking peace in different ways, but they can achieve real happiness only if they consult Krishna or the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which constitute the science of Krishna through the bona fide representative of Krishna, the man in Krishna consciousness. If economic development and material comforts could drive away one's lamentations for family, social, national, or international inebrities, then Arjuna would not have said that even an unrivaled kingdom on earth or supremacy like that of the demigods in the heavenly planets would be unable to drive away his lamentations. He sought, therefore, refuge in Krishna consciousness, and that is the right path for peace and harmony. Economic development and material comforts. economic development or supremacy over the worlds can be finished at any moment by the cataclysms of material nature. Even elevation into higher planetary situation, as men are now seeking on the moon planet, can also be finished at one stroke. The Bhagavad Gita confirms this.
Shine punye martya lokam vishanti.
When the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness to the lowest status of life. Many politicians of the world have fallen down in that way. Such downfalls are only constitute more causes for lamentation. Therefore, if we want to curb lamentation for good, then we have to take shelter of Krishna, and so Arjuna is seeking to do. So Arjuna asked Krishna to solve his problem definitely, and that is the way of Krishna consciousness.
2.9 Bhagavad Gita 2.9 Sanjay Uvacha Evam Uktva Hrishikesham Gudakesha Parantapa Nayotsya Iti Govindam Uktva Tushnim Babuaha. Translation. Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. Purport. Dhritarashtra must have been very glad to understand that Arjuna was not going to fight and was instead leaving the battlefield for the begging profession. But Sanjaya disappointed him again in relating that Arjuna was competent to kill his enemies. Parantapa. Although Arjuna was for the time being overwhelmed with the false grief due to family affection, he surrendered unto Krishna, the supreme spiritual master, as a disciple. This indicated that he would soon be free from the false lamentation resulting from family affection and would be enlightened with perfect knowledge of self-realization or Krishna consciousness and would then surely fight. Thus Dhritarashtra's joy would be frustrated since Arjuna would be enlightened by Krishna and would fight to the end.
Tamuvacha Hrishikesha Prahasanyiva Bharata Senayorubayor Madhye Vishidantam Yidam Vacha. O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. The talk was going on between intimate friends, namely the Hrishikesha and the Gudakesha. As friends, both of them were on the same level, but one of them voluntarily became a student of the other. Krishna was smiling because a friend had chosen to become a disciple. As Lord of all, he is always in the superior position as the master of everyone. And yet, the Lord agrees to be a friend, a son or a lover for a devotee who wants him in such a role. But when he was accepted as the master, he at once assumed the role and talked with the disciple like the master, with gravity as it is required. It appears that the talk between the master and the disciple was openly exchanged in the presence of both armies so that all were benefited. So the talks of Bhagavad Gita are not for any particular person, society or community, but they are for all, and friends or enemies are equally entitled to hear them. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Asochananvasocastvam prajnavadamsa bhasasi gatasu nagatasumscha nanusochanti panditaha.
The The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. The Lord at once took the position of the teacher and chastised the student, calling him indirectly a fool. The Lord said, you are talking like a learned man, but you do not know that one who is learned one who knows what is the body and what is soul, does not lament for any stage of the body, neither in the living nor in the dead condition. As explained in later chapters, it will be clear that knowledge means to know matter and spirit and be the controller of both. Arjuna argued that the religious principles should be given more importance than politics and sociology, but he did not know that the religious firm knowledge of matter, soul, and the supreme is even more important than religious formalities. And because he was lacking in that knowledge, he should not have posed himself as a very learned man. As he did not happen to be a very learned man, he was consequently body is lamenting for something which was unworthy of lamentation. The body which was unworthy of lamentation. The body is born and is destined to be vanquished today or tomorrow. Therefore, the body is not as important as the soul. One who knows one who knows this is actually learned, and for him there is no cause for lamentation, regardless of the condition of the material body.
Natva evaham jatu nasam natvam nemi jana deepaha na chaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayam ata param. Translation. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Purport. In the Vedas, in the Katha Upanishad, as well as in the Svetashwaratara Upanishad, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the maintainer of innumerable living entities in terms of their different situations according to individual work and reaction of work. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is also, by his plenary portions, alive in the heart of every living entity. Only saintly persons who can see within and without the same Supreme Lord can actually attain to perfect and eternal peace. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetanam eko bahunam ya vidadati kaman tam atmastam ne ye nupasyanti dhiras tesam santi saswati netaresam. Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. The same Vedic truth given to Arjuna is given to all persons in the world who pose themselves as very learned but actually have but a poor fund of knowledge. The Lord says clearly that he himself, the Arjuna and all the kings who are assembled on the battlefield are eternally individual beings, and that the Lord is eternally the maintainer of the individual living entities, both in their conditioned and in their liberated situations. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is a supreme individual person, and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal associate, and all the kings assembled there are individual eternal persons. It is not that they did not exist as individuals in the past, and it is not they will not remain eternal persons. Their individuality existed in the past, and their individuality will continue in the future without interruption. Therefore, there is no cause for lamentation for anyone. The Mayavadi theory that after liberation, the individual soul, separated by the covering of Maya or illusion, will merge into the impersonal Brahman and lose its individual existence is not supported herein by Lord Krishna, the supreme authority. Nor is the theory that we only think of individuality in the conditioned state supported herein. Krishna clearly says herein that in the future, also the individuality of the Lord and others, as it is confirmed in the Upanishads, will continue eternally. This statement of Krishna's is authoritative because Krishna cannot be subject to illusion. If individuality were not a fact, then Krishna would not have stressed it so much, even for the future. The Mayavadi may argue that the individuality spoken of by Krishna is not spiritual but material, even accepting even accepting the argument that the individuality is material, then how can one distinguish Krishna's individuality? Krishna affirms his individuality in the past and confirms his individuality in the future also. He has confirmed his individuality in many ways, and the impersonal Brahman has been declared to be subordinate to him. Krishna has maintained spiritual individuality all along. If he is accepted as an ordinary conditioned soul in the individual consciousness, then his Bhagavad Gita has no value as authoritative scripture. A common man with all the 4 defects of human frailty is unable to teach that which is worth hearing. The Gita is above such literature. No mundane book compares with the Bhagavad Gita. When one accepts Krishna as an ordinary man, the Gita loses all importance. The Mayavadi argues that the plurality mentioned in this verse is conventional and that it refers to the body. But previous to this verse, such a bodily conception is already condemned. After condemning the bodily conception of the living entities, how was it possible for Krishna to place a conventional proposition on the body again? Therefore, individuality is maintained on spiritual grounds and is thus confirmed by great acharyas like Sri Ramanuja and others. It is clearly mentioned in many places in the Gita that this spiritual individuality is understood by those who are devotees of the Lord. Those who are envious of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to the great literature. The non-devotee's approach to the teachings of the Gita is something like that of a bee licking on a bottle of honey. One cannot have a taste of honey unless one opens a bottle. Similarly, the mysticism of Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees, and no one else can taste it, as it is stated in the 4th chapter of the book. Nor can the Gita be touched by persons who envy the very existence of the Lord. Therefore, the Mayavadi explanation of the Gita is the most misleading representation of the whole truth. Lord Chaitanya has forbidden us to read commentations made by the Mayavadis and warns that one who takes to such an understanding of the Mayavadi philosophy loses all power to understand the real mystery of the Gita. If individuality refers to this empirical universe, then there is no need of teaching by the Lord. The plurality of the individual soul and the Lord is an eternal fact, and it is confirmed by the Vedas as above mentioned.
Dehinosmin yadadehi kaumaram yavanam jira tada dehantara praptir dhirastatra muhyati. Translation. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death, and a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, and sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body. And since it is sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there was no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on account of death. neither for Bhishma nor for Drona, for whom he was so much concerned. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment or suffering, according to one's work in life. So Bhishma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least life in heavenly bodies for superior enjoyment of material existence. So, in either case, there was no cause of lamentation. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the super soul, and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a dhira, or a most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the change of bodies. The Mayavadi theory of oneness of the spirit soul cannot be entertained on the ground that the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. Such cutting into different individual souls would make the supreme cleavable or changeable against the principle of the supreme souls being unchangeable. As confirmed in the Gita, the fragmental portions of the supreme exist eternally, sanatana, and are called kshara, that is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so, and even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same, fragmental. But once liberated, he lives an eternal life in bliss and knowledge with the personality of Godhead. The theory of reflection can be applied to the super soul, who is present in each and every individual body and is known as a Paramatma. He is different from the individual living entity. When the sky is reflected in water, the reflections represent both the sun and the moon and the stars also. The stars can be compared to the living entities, and the sun or the moon to the Supreme Lord. The individual fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna, and the Supreme Soul is the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. They are not on the same level, as it will be apparent in the beginning of the fourth chapter. If Arjuna is on the same level with Krishna, and Krishna is not superior to Arjuna, then the relationship of instructor and instructed becomes meaningless. If both of them are deluded by the illusory energy, Maya, then there is no need of one being the instructor and the other the instructed. Such instruction would be useless because, in the clutches of Maya, no one can be an authoritative instructor. Under the circumstances, it is admitted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, superior in position to the living entity, Arjuna, who is a forgetful soul deluded by Maya. 14th text 14. Matra sparshastu kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkada agamapayino nitya stam tidikshava bharata. Translation.
O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from the sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. And put by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the proper discharge of duty, one has to learn to tolerate non-permanent appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress. According to Vedic injunction, one has to take his bath early in the morning, even during the month of Magha, January, February. It is very cold at that time, but in spite of that, man who abides Despite, but in spite of that, a man who ab- abide, abides by the religious principles does not hesitate to take his bath. Similar, similar, similarly, similarly, a a woman does not hesitate to cook in the kitchen in the months of May and June, the hottest part of the summer season. One has to execute his duty in spite of climatic inconveniences. Similarly, to fight is the religious principle of the Kshatriyas, and although one has to fight with some friend or relative, one should not deviate from his prescribed duty. One has to follow the prescribed rules and regulations of religious principles in order to rise up to the platform of knowledge, because by knowledge and devotion only can one liberate himself from the clutches of Maya illusion. The two different names of address given to Arjuna are also significant. To address him, Ankantaya signifies his great blood relations from his mother's side, and to address him as Bharata signifies his greatness from his father's side. From both sides, he is supposed to have a great heritage. A great heritage brings responsibility in the matter of proper discharge of duties. Therefore, he cannot avoid fighting.
Bhagavad Gita 2.15 Yam hina vyathayanti ete purusham purushar sabha samadukka sukam dhairam somrutva tvaya kalpate. Translation. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Purport. Anyone who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. In the Varnashrama institution, the fourth stage of life, namely the renounced order sannyasa, is a painstaking situation, but one who is serious about making his life perfect surely adopts the sannyasa order of life in spite of all difficulties. The difficulties usually arise from having to sever family relationships, to give up the connection of wife and children. But if anyone is able to tolerate such difficulties, surely his path to spiritual realization is complete. Similarly, in Arjuna's discharge of duties as a Kshatriya, he is advised to persevere even if it is difficult to fight with his family members or similarly beloved persons. Lord Chaitanya took sannyasa at the age of 24, and his dependents, young wife as well as old mother, had no one else to look after them. Yet for a higher cause he took sannyasa and was steady in the discharge of higher duties. That is the way of achieving liberation from material bondage.
Text 16. Nasato vidyato bhavo, na bhavo vidyate satah, ubayorapi drushtanta anayos tattvadarshibhi. Those who are seers of the truth, the translation, those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal soul, the soul, of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. Purport. There is no endurance of the changing body, that the body is changing every moment by the actions and reactions of the different cells is admitted by modern medical science, and thus growth and old age are taking place in the body. But the spirit soul exists permanently, remaining the same despite all changes of the body and the mind. That is the difference between matter and spirit. By nature, the body is ever changing, and the soul is eternal. This conclusion is established by all classes of seers of the truth, both the impersonalist and personalist. In the Vishnu Purana 2.12.38, it is stated that Vishnu and his abodes all have self illuminated spiritual existence. Jyotimsi Vishnu Bhuvanani Vishnu. The words existent and non existent refer only to spirit and matter. That is a version of all seers of truth. This is the beginning of the instruction by the Lord to the living entities who are bewildered by the influence of ignorance. Removal of ignorance involves the re establishment of the eternal relationship between the worshipper and the worshipable, and the consequent understanding of the difference between the part and parcel living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can understand the nature of the Supreme by thorough study of oneself. The difference between oneself and the Supreme Being understood as the relationship between the part and the whole. In the Vedanta Sutras as well as in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme has been accepted as the origin of all emanations. Such emanations are experienced by superior and inferior natural sequences. The living entities belong to the superior nature, as it will be revealed in the 7th chapter. Although there is no difference between the energy and the energetic is accepted as the supreme, and the energy or nature is accepted as a subordinate. The living entities, therefore, are always subordinate to the Supreme Lord, as in the case of the master and the servant, or the teacher and the taught. Such clear knowledge is impossible to understand under the spell of ignorance, and to drive away such ignorance, the Lord teaches the Bhagavad Gita for the enlightenment of all living entities for all time.
Bhagavad Gita 2.17. Avinasi tu tadvidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasam avyayasvayasya na kaschit kartum arhati. Translation: that which pervades the entire body you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. Purport: this verse more clearly explains the real nature of the soul, which is spread all over the body. Anyone can understand what is spread all over the body. It is consciousness. Everyone is conscious of the pains and pleasures of the body in part or as a whole. This spreading of consciousness is limited with one's own body. The pains and pleasures of one body are unknown to another. Therefore, each and every body is the embodiment of an individual soul, and the symptom of the soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness. This soul is described as 1/10,000th part of the upper portion of the hair point in size. The Sveta Swatara Upanishad 5.9 confirms this. Balagra Sata Bhagasya Satada Kalpitasya Cha Bhago Jivasa Vigneya Sa Chanantyaya Kalpate. When the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts and again each of which such parts is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is the measurement of dimension of the spirit soul. Similarly, the same version is stated: Kesagra Sata Bhagasya Satamsha Sadrasatmakaha Jiva Suksmo Sarupo Yam Sankhyatito Hi Chitkana. There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms which are measured as 1/10,000th of the upper portion of the hair. Therefore, the individual particle of the spirit soul is a spiritual atom smaller than the material atoms, and such atoms are innumerable. This very small spiritual spark is the basic principle of the material body, and the influence of such a spiritual spark is spread all over the body as the influence of the active principle of some medicine spreads throughout the body. This current of the spirit soul is felt all over the body as consciousness, and that is the proof of the presence of the soul. Any layman can understand that the material body minus consciousness is a dead body, and the consciousness cannot be revived in the body by any means of material administration. Therefore, consciousness is not due to any amount of material combination, but to the spirit soul. In the Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.9, the measurement of the atomic spirit of soul, atomic spirit soul is further explained. Eso nur atma cheta sa viditavyo yasmin prana panchadha samavivesha pranaishittam sarvam otam pragnavam yasmin vasude vibhyate esa atma. The soul is atomic in size and can be perceived by perfect intelligence. This atomic soul is floating in the five kinds of air: prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udana. Is situated within the heart and spreads its influence all over the body of the embodied living entities. When the soul is purified from the contamination of the five kinds of material air, its spiritual influence is exhibited. The Hatha Yoga system is meant for controlling the five kinds of air encircling the pure soul by different kinds of sitting postures, not for any material profit, but for liberation of the minute soul from the entanglement of material atmosphere. So, the constitution of the atomic soul is admitted in all Vedic literatures, and it is also actually felt in the practical experience of any sane man. Only the insane man can think of this atomic soul as all pervading Vishnu Tattva. The influence of the atomic soul can be spread all over a particular body. According to the Mundaka Upanishad, this atomic soul is situated in the heart of every living entity, and because the measurement of the atomic soul is beyond the power of appreciation of the material scientists, some of them assert foolishly that there is no soul. The atomic individual soul is definitely there in the heart along with the super soul, and thus all the energies of bodily movement are emanating from this part of the body. The corpuscles which carry the oxygen from the lungs gather energy from the soul. When the soul passes away from this the activity of the blood generating fusion ceases. Medical science accepts the importance of the red corpuscles, but it cannot ascertain that the source of the energy is the soul. Medical science, however, does admit that the heart is the seat of all energies of the body. Such atomic particles of the spirit whole are compared to the sunshine molecules. In the sunshine, there are innumerable radiant molecules. Similarly, the fragment parts of the Supreme Soul are atomic sparks of the rays of the Supreme Lord, called by the name Prabha or superior energy. So, whether one follows Vedic knowledge or modern science, one cannot deny the existence of the spirit soul in the body, and the science of the soul is explicitly described in the Bhagavad Gita by the personality of Godhead himself.
Antavanta text 18 chapter 2 Antavanta ime deha nityasyokta sharirinah anashino aprameyasya tasmad yudyasva bharata.
The material body is perishable by nature. It may perish. The material body of the indestructible, immersible, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. The material body is perishable by nature. It may perish immediately or may do so after 100 years. It is a question of time only. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. But this spirit soul is so minute that it cannot even be seen by an enemy. To say nothing of being killed, as mentioned in the previous verse, it is so small that no one can have any idea how to measure its dimension. So from being from both viewing points there is no viewpoints there is no cause there's no cause of lamentation the because the living entity as he is cannot be killed, nor can the material body be saved but for any length of of time or permanently protected. The minute particle of the whole spirit acquires the material body according to his work, and therefore observance of religious principles should be utilized. In the Vedanta Sutras, the living entity is qualified as light because he is part and parcel of the supreme light. As sunlight maintains the entire universe, so the light of the soul maintains this material body. As soon as the spirit soul is out of this material body, the body begins to decompose. Therefore, it is the spirit soul which maintains this body. The body itself is unimportant. Arjuna was advised to fight and not sacrifice the cause of religion for the material bodily considerations.
Yeah, tomorrow. Sit it up. Abhi, sit it up. Abhi.